Hello everybody, today we've got the Harris-Trump prediction map for the month of October. It's not easy to do, it's a nail-biter in pretty much all 7 battleground states. If you're purely just going to go by the polls, then Harris would slightly edge it out. If you're going to go by the polling errors back in 2016 or 2020, then Trump would come out on top. So I do think it's totally up for grabs. It all depends what you want to emphasize. I could easily make a map where Harris sweeps all the battlegrounds. And just as easily, I could do the same thing where Trump carries all 7. So while we go over a little bit of the background, I'm going to start by filling out the obvious safe states. And those margins are going to be 10 or more points or otherwise not competitive. So as we get into this, I try to analyze every state. It's not just about the polling, but as we get closer to the election, there's going to be a little bit more weight on that polling. But given all the changes over the past few months, I think we got to get even closer, probably about 3 weeks from election day before I really start paying a lot of attention to the polling. So if you're going to make a case for Harris, it's going to be that she has surged in popularity since Biden got out. She's clearly generated a lot more enthusiasm. Plus, Trump is very scandal-plagued. There's a lot of voters that want to come out just to vote against him. Plus, Democrats did not get wiped out in the last midterms, and they've overperformed in special elections. And abortion is going to be a big motivator for women, independents, and suburban voters. Now, on the other side, if you're going to make a case for Trump, it's going to be that he has been consistently underestimated in the polling when he's been on the ballot in 16 and in 20. He doesn't at all need to win the popular vote. He ignites a lot of low-propensity voters to come out for him. Voters are not at all happy with the direction of the country. Immigration is a big issue that looks like it favors Trump. Plus, there's nostalgia for the economy and lack of inflation during the Trump years. And you could say Harris, as vice president, was very unpopular. She's got issues with authenticity, and any spike in popularity should come back down once polarization kicks in and voters get more familiar with Harris. Given it's going to be so close, I don't think there's any shame in being wrong unless you have a map that is completely lopsided. Now, I'm going to be on the lookout for some October surprises. Hopefully, we've got them pretty much all out of the way prior to October, but you never know. Plus, Biden is still in office. He could put out some executive orders. You've got to be on the lookout for the Supreme Court, jobs numbers, inflation, overseas conflicts, etc. So these safe states I don't think are really anything too shocking. I'm still waiting to see if a red or a blue wave type of national environment takes shape in the final couple of weeks. But outside of that, nothing's really going to change. Colorado's going to be safe for Harris. Alaska, even with ranked choice voting, is going to be safe for Trump. Now, some of these ratings are very borderline, lean likely or likely safe. So your map might look a little bit different even though we're close on these margins. Now, if we go down to the likely states, these are going to be between 5 and 10 point margins. For Kamala Harris, we're going to give her New Mexico. Biden cleared 10 last time. This time it looks like it should be able to dip down into single digits. There's an outside chance it gets even closer, but the state is blue enough to where I think it's going to be at least mid if not high single digits. Now we're going to do Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. This is the Omaha district. Trump carried it in 16, Biden carried it in 20. There has since been redistricting, and it's technically not as blue as it was in the last election, but the trends here have been away from Trump. I think it's kind of a long shot if Trump were able to flip it. It could certainly get under 5 if Trump has a good night, but for now we're going to say this is about 6 to 7 points for Harris. Then we've got Minnesota, home state of running mate Tim Walz. We know Trump got very unexpectedly close here in 16. In 20, Biden carried it comfortably. With Walz on the ticket, I would think that would boost Harris by at least 1 point. It's hard to predict the final margin here, but I think likely is going to be a fair rating. Then in the Northeast, we've got Maine at large. Earlier in the year, there was talk about maybe this flipping red. I didn't buy that at the time, and for right now, I think it would be under 10, but I do think it would be more than 5. Something could change, but Harris is going to get it likely. And then we've got New Hampshire. Here's another one that was extremely close in 16, not that close in 20. It's another one that could get under 5 if Trump has a solid night. 10, I think, would be pushing it for Harris. We're going to say it's about mid-single digits and go likely. The last likely state for Harris is going to be Virginia, another one that Biden won by 10 and 20. I think this could have been closer if Trump picked Governor Glenn Youngkin as his running mate, but he didn't. I think it's going to at least be 6 points. Things could change, but it's going to stay likely. Now we've got the likely states for Trump. Now let's go back up to the Northeast into Maine. The 2nd congressional district, of course, the first is deep blue, but the 2nd is much more Trump-friendly. I think this could actually hit 10 points, but out of caution, I'm going to keep this at high single digits and put it at likely. Then we've got 2 more states. We've got Iowa and Ohio. These are both states that I think technically could hit 10 points. I'm waiting to see the polling in the final couple of weeks. Trump has been underestimated here, but again, out of caution, I'm going to keep them at high single digits and likely. Then we've got Texas. This state has trended toward the Democrats. Everybody's going to be looking at the suburbs and South Texas. Trump could make some gains with Hispanic voters. It might not matter if he continues to lose support in a place like Williamson County. Either way, once you even everything out, this is going to be likely an over 5 for Trump. Then his home state of Florida, that is going to be over 5. The polling here in 2020 actually had Biden winning this state. It doesn't mean it's going to underestimate Trump again. We want to see what's going to happen in Miami-Dade County, but I think the safest assumption is he's going to carry his own state by at least 5 points, so it's going to go likely. Now we're down to the 7 battleground states. Lean margins are under 5 point, but more than 1 point. Tilt margins are 1 point or less. And all 7 of these are very close. Right now I have them all at under 2-point margins. So when it's that close, you could flip a coin and give it to either side. Let's start at North Carolina. It's possible there's some lingering fallout from the recent hurricane. But aside from that, the previous polling has underestimated Trump in this state. That's not a surprise. It happened in most of the states. It is close right now. It's a polarized state. Again, Harris could make some gains in the suburbs, but Trump could potentially offset it with black voters in the northeast part of the state. There's also a big governor's race here between Stein and Robinson. I tend to think it's not going to have much impact on this race, but right now I do have it going toward Trump. The margin is about 1.1, so that means it's going to get just over tilt and go to leans. Then we're going to go to Georgia. If Trump continues to bleed support here in the Atlanta suburbs, he's not going to be able to carry the state. So as always, it depends what you want to focus on, but right now I do have it going as a tilt toward Trump. Now we're going to go to the Southwest. We're going to go to Arizona. This is a state where immigration and the border are massively important topics. If Harris does well in the Maricopa suburbs, this state is going to go blue. But given that I think the border is a weakness for Harris, even if some more of those establishment Republicans might think Trump is a little bit too harsh, I think in the end that issue is going to narrowly give him the state. So he's going to get it with a tilt rating. Next door in Nevada. This is a state that hasn't gone red on a presidential level since 2004. Republicans are bullish that they're going to be able to flip it this time. There's working class voters in Clark County. Trump could make some gains there. I don't think he's going to win the county, but he doesn't have to. Harris is also probably going to win Washoe County. I think it'll be narrower than 2020. It definitely has the potential to flip, but right now I still have Harris holding it by a tilt margin. Now we're going to go around into the Rust Belt. These are the former blue wall states that Trump won in 16, but then Biden flipped in 20. I get that the current aggregate polling right now does slightly favor Harris. Of these 3 states, I tend to think Wisconsin is the reddest. I do think Harris has some room to expand in that state in some of the Wow County suburbs, but I also think Trump has room to expand in the lighter red and some of the lighter blue counties in the driftless area. This is basically a 50-50 state. They've got Democrats and Republicans elected statewide. For right now, I'm going to keep my rating the same as a tilt for Trump. Now next door in Michigan, this state I tend to think is slightly bluer, but it could go either way. There's other factors here, including unions, electric vehicles, the Arab American vote. Again, it could go either way. The polling here did underestimate Trump again last time, but not as bad as it did in Wisconsin. So this is not the final rating, but I'm going to put this as a tilt for Harris. And finally, Pennsylvania. Again, it's extremely close. You could give it to either side. Maybe Trump makes some gains in northeastern PA. Maybe he also makes a little bit of a gain in Philadelphia itself. We'll be looking at those suburbs outside of Philly, plus around Pittsburgh, Erie County, and the T. It's all up for grabs. The margins are all up for debate. My rating for right now is going to be the same as it was last month, and it's going to be a tilt for Trump. So the final total here is 291 for Trump, 247 for Harris. This is not the final prediction. We're going to update this one more time right before the election. So I try to factor in a variety of things: the candidates themselves, how they're running their campaigns, the debates, the issues, the national environment, and of course the polling. As we get closer, I do put more weight on the polling. However, you can only put so much weight on it given all the misses over the past few cycles. The polling was horrible in a state like Wisconsin last time, but it was actually pretty good in a state like Georgia. So the polling could easily underestimate Harris this time by 1 or 2 points. I think that is much less likely than it underestimating Trump by at least a half a point again. Some people think it'll underestimate him by 2, 3, or more. I think that's too much of a stretch for me, but something under 1 point does not seem unreasonable. But Republicans will also point to some of the absentee ballot requests in states like Virginia or Pennsylvania or North Carolina. They think it's great that Republicans are outperforming the 2020 expectations. For me, I don't put any weight on that at all. It doesn't tell you how they voted, and it doesn't tell you who's going to show up on election day. But I also think that if it were the other way around and Democrats were overperforming in the mail-in ballot requests, then they would be talking that up as well, and Republicans would be downplaying it. I think we all want to know, is there going to be another hidden Trump vote out there? Or it's going to be different this time, and enough voters are tired of Trump's antics and they want to move past him. Maybe pollsters overcorrected this time, but they're underestimating Harris. But maybe there's also a Bradley effect at play, or more moderate voters, independents, and suburban voters. They're willing to tell pollsters they're going to support Harris because maybe it just makes them feel a little bit better. Prior to Harris getting into the race, and even after that, I always expected her to do a little bit better in the Sun Belt and do a little bit worse in the Rust Belt. I think she should theoretically connect more with black voters in a place like North Carolina or Georgia. Plus, suburban suburban voters outside of Atlanta as well as outside of Phoenix. And Trump seems like he would be more relatable in the Rust Belt, and he would be able to do better than Biden did with unions and working class blue-collar white voters. I think culture is a big factor, and the Democrats have increasingly alienated a lot of those types of voters. So that's why I think Trump has a pretty good chance in most of those states. All the polls are really within the margin of error, so I don't think there's really any shame in being wrong in a lot of these states. Back in 2020, when Trump was in office during the pandemic, there was a lot of dissatisfaction with him, and the polling at that time was much, much worse for him compared to what it is now against Harris. But since then, we do have abortion as a key issue. Some states have ballot measures. Maybe that drives up Democratic support. Maybe in the end, the election is not actually that close. Maybe Trump somehow wins the popular vote and makes it competitive in New Mexico, Minnesota, or Virginia. Or maybe everything somehow lines up for Harris and she sweeps every battleground state and makes it really competitive in a place like Iowa or Ohio. If anybody says Harris can't win or Trump can't win, I would not pay much attention to that prediction. But that's it for October. Can't wait to see what happens in the final month. So let me know in the comments, how does your map look for the month of October? Are you close to this map? Do you have Trump winning more states, or do you have Harris coming out on top? What are you going to be looking for at the end? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.